mark upon you in Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Asherah, Antalanawa, Hashabath, Ba'shalom, Thawada, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushai, that gives to us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. Quiet. The Ha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Mayanya Oh Haharim Mayan Yabawa Isaiah Yabawa Mayahawa Shaisha Shamayim Warataza La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawum Shashamarka Hana La'a Yanawum Wala'a Yayashun Jashumar Yashrela Yahweh Shemaria Yahweh Tazaya Ayel Yad Yam Yawamum Hashamash La'a Hakaya Wairat La'a Balayala Yahweh Yashamaria Makal Ra Yashamar Napasha Yahweh Yashamar Hawalakia Wabawaya Ma'aitha I Walam Basham Yahweh Thawada Aman.
Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth even forevermore.
Shema Yashrala, heal Israel. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah Yahweh, Akkad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Apply Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abba Yahweh, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwithka, Saba'a, Ratazawanka, Hayah, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashamayim, Natalanawa, Lakam, Yawum, Sa, Wasalakwanawa, Kabawafnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawathanawa, Wala'a, Habiyanawa, O Nasayawan, Abo, Hawashanawa, Mara, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Watha Parath, La'aiwalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this men therefore pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, and forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'ashirah Matazawah, 10 Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Lakah, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanya, La'ah, Thaisha, Lakah, Paso, Wala'ah, Thaibadum, La'ah, Talakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawum, Hashabath, Lakwadashwa, Kabad, Abiyaka, Wa'amaka, La'ah, Taratazak, La'ah, Thana'at, La'ah, Thaganab, La'ah, Thainab, Shakur, La'ah, Thakhamad, Ko, Asherah, Ara'aika, Aman.
Exodus 20:2. I am the Lord thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy power, am a jealous Father, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy power in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, not thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his maidservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Aman, Yeshua, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Thwada Amun, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Ella. I model upon you all Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rachawam, Abiyah, Onara'ah, Aliyawan. Malat, Sho, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wako, Debarim, Kayayim. Wagum, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapalah, Yawaitazah, Yahawashah. Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Ainka, Yasha'ala. Izana, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawumyum, Makwadam. Baba Kusha, Shalat, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazwadat, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Bashamar, Alnawa. Ba'ikor, Shalat, Haroka, Sho, Yahawashai, Lanawa, Ladamanawa, Rabim, Kakama, Sabawana, or the Ith, Sho, the Baraka. Bahasham, Yahawashai, Thawada, Some God, wa iwalam. Amen. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people, Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, or war, Lara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Koran, Ha'ayol, La Korah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Hasheman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha Allah. Shabbat, be seated. All right, shalom, shalom. Shalom. Peace and blessings to all the brothers and sisters about the four corners, those who are watching on the live stream, listening on the teleconference line, to the Akim that's here in school. Happy Sabbath, seventh day of the Most High, day of rest, a day of worship, a day of praise, a day of doing good deeds, upliftment, edification, all of these things that succumb to the fruits of the Spirit. Most High's will, everybody is in good spirits to be able to enjoy the Sabbath day wherever you are physically located. This is Hayashra Kanash, it's the congregation of Israel, as most of you know who are tuned in. Most High's will, it's a blessing that you guys are still tuning in weekly and also participating in the classes to make sure that we never forsake the assembling of ourselves, as it describes in the book of Hebrews, that we come together as often as we can, that we fellowship as often as we can to stay in the mercy and grace and the mind and the spirit of the Most High Yahweh Shai, or the Most High God, and what we know is Jesus Christ in English, right? So this is the purpose of us coming together on the Sabbath days to now join back and reconnect and replug back in to the Father. Everything that we have, everything, every blessing, every trial, every tribulation, every journey, everything that we overcome is because the Most High sets things in order. So we have to now make sure that we give that honor and just due and respect and praise to the Father for everything that has now transpired. So this is the Sabbath day. We're in the Old Testament. This week, we're going to be diving into the book of Judges, the 3rd and 4th chapters, to kind of go into some history and also go into a level of understanding. Yeah, just this. That's cool. pertaining to our ancient ancestors. So we're going to dive right in without ado. Try to get through this expeditiously, as we say, but also judiciously. Today is the 15th. I don't like this pen. Where's the other pen? There you go. Okay. Let's get things in order. All right. So, Judges, 3rd chapter, also 4th chapter. Not too many verses, total of about 53 or 4 verses. We should be able to get through this nicely today. All right. So Kahan Samak will be presiding over the service this morning. And let's jump in. So this is Judges 3:1. It says, now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan, right? So when it reads and says even, it's talking specifically, right? So that there is no, question as to who it was referring to, was the men from before or the ones, that was in another area. So when you see that word in the Bible, and you read it in the different verses, when it says even such and such, it's just saying specifically, this is what I'm talking about. So it says that there are nations that the Most High left amongst us to prove us. And I always articulate that in order for a person who's learned in something, who's developed certain skills or certain temperaments to now try to better themselves, the only way that you are now going to be able to determine if you have now learned and disciplined yourself is to face some type of trial, tribulation, or opposition, to now see where you stand, right? To see what happens. So usually sometimes, we always have that conversation where people say, well, if I was there, I would have done such and such. Well, the Most High creates those situations for you, so that when you are there and that circumstance happens, how are you going to deal with it? What's going to be your train of thought on how to handle those situations? I'm going to go to one of my favorites in the Apocrypha, the book of Ecclesiasticus, 27. Most of you know, I love this verse. Ecclesiasticus chapter 27 in the Apocrypha. You got a red Apocrypha, page 86. Ecclesiasticus chapter 27, verse 5, which says, the furnace proveth the potter's vessels, so the trial of man is in his reasonings. So we know based on scripture that the furnace is the world, right? The potter is the Most High. So the Most High allows the world and the things that now happen in it to prove the potter's vessels. The vessels is talking about man, and man in specific is talking about Israel. So how does the Most High do these things? By now what we're reading in Judges, the 3rd chapter, is by leaving nations who do not have these laws, these precepts, these judgments amongst us, who do not follow the Most High, who don't know the Most High. They follow other false man-made gods, right? Gods of the earth, gods of the heavens, gods of trees and things of that nature. They worship those things. So now when the Lord has given us commandments, he's given us order on how we now worship him. Here comes someone else with something different, right? And it may seem to be or appear to be, acceptable or tempting to now come and learn of it. But those things have drawbacks. There are things that now will have consequences to you just being inquisitive to learn what those things are. So again, it says, so the trial of man is in his reasoning, your thought, right? What comes to mind at that moment, not when you're away, right? Not when you're away, because it's great that we can come together and say, yeah, I'll stand by you, Most High. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But then you get into that circumstance and you see certain things transpire, like what happened with Peter when Christ was being abducted and taken to be Inquisition. Peter was like, I don't know him, right? And he said he was cursing up a storm to try to separate himself from Yahushua. So as much as, we say these things, you got to prove it. We prove each other daily. We prove each other to our family members. We prove each other to our coworkers. We prove each other to our neighborhood friends and associates and things of that nature by our actions. So the Most High wants us to be proven to him. And it's going to be based on our actions and our deeds, just not lip service, but your actions and your deeds and what you stand for. Everybody individually, right? There'll be a collective proving, and then there's going to be individual proving of the Most High's will. If we how much of it that we have now built up. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me take this off here. So now reading again back in Judges chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan, right? So now when you read it, it says that the Lord left. Remember, the Most High said he is the one that goes and fights for us, right? So if I go to the chapter before, chapter 2, and I read verse 21, it says, chapter 2 and 21, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died, that through them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk therein as their fathers did, keep it or not. Therefore, the Lord left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Joshua. I mean, the Most High could have done it, but he left some there. He didn't allow us to totally destroy all of them when we were taken back or taking ownership of our land. He purposely left some there to see how we would stand in firmness with the Most High's commandments, right? So now, 3 and 2, it says, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war at the least, such as before knew nothing thereof. So even outside of just proving the law, right, to see if we're going to stand in concert with the laws of the Most High, we even had to learn war. We've had laws that the Most High gave us when you read in Deuteronomy about war, what age you can be in before you go to war, what stipulations had to transpire if you just got married, you just had a house. All of these things are a part of the law. So we now still had to exercise that. The nation that came, or the generation that came out of Egypt, didn't have this understanding. They never fought in any wars. Most High fought for them, right? So now he said, okay, I'm going to leave them there, and they got to now learn how to become soldiers, to defend themselves, to fight for themselves. When you look around the world, pretty much every country has some form of an army or military, right? And if they don't, then they rely on someone else to fight for them. I think when I was in one of the islands, they didn't have a military. They were relying on a European country to fight for them because they were under the orders of the queen, so to speak. So they are now subjects under them, and they're protected by their military, right? But most countries want to have their own military. Even though they could be allies of someone else, you want to have your own military. In order to have your own military, you got to learn how to fight. In order to fight, you got to have or learn how to fight. In order to prove your fighting skills, you got to have an opposition. You got to have a partner, a sparring partner to fight against. In this case, it was these Hamitic nations, right? Let's read who they were. Verse 3. So Exodus verse 15 and 3.
And it reads, the Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. So the Most High wants to show his people to fight, because he himself he's a man of war. Not war for warring's sake, but to take what is rightfully yours, that he sent for you, and nobody gonna give it to you. You gotta fight for it. Like you can get what is rightfully yours in according to the Most High.
Right.
And that's why when we read Judges, it's pretty much judge fight for those who are looking for justice. That's what it's supposed to be. A righteous judge fight to reestablish those who are being abused and taken advantage of, and give them the judgment of what is rightfully theirs. So that's why, again, the Most High want us to learn how to fight to get what is rightfully ours.
Right. That verse when it says the Lord is a man of war, the Lord is his name, right? It kind of gives you another characteristic and a perspective about the Most High God. Most people stay in First John, the 4th chapter, when it says God is love, right? And they just see the emotion of love, that we should just love everybody because God is love. But God is love for those, as far as for who deal with his commandments, the keeping of his order. And then he's also a man who's a warrior. He likes the conflict. He likes to see his creations battle and fight it out, right? That's what it says. And if you don't believe that that's true, just look at history. History has proven what that verse says. There's been wars and wars and wars and wars and wars and wars. We're looking at almost being on the brink of another war right now between two different nations. Right? So it's not that God is not a man of compassion and love for certain people or certain things. He is. But just like we've taken on an image of the Most High, we have different aspects about us where I can be loving about this, but I can hate that and want to go to bat and fight over a certain situation. Right? So we have certain aspects of the Most High that's in us. Not the fullness, but we're striving to get there. Right? That's why the Most High says sometimes that he's going to put his spirit in us at that appointed time to fully carry out what his intentions and will is. All right. So now going back to Judges chapter 3 and verse 3. So verse 2 had a link up of Exodus chapter 15 and 3. So again, that was Exodus 15 and 3, and now we're moving on. It says, namely, 5 lords of the Philistines and all the Canaanites and the Sidonians and the Hivites that dwelt in Mount Lebanon from Mount Baal Hermon unto the entering in of Hamath. So these are the different nations that came out of Ham, strategically placed in different areas. The Most High specifically calls out Mount Lebanon to even give you more geographic locations of where certain Hamitic people were in concert to where Israel were with their newly provided lots or inheritance of land. And you had these Hamitic nations left there. I think we read a couple chapters back that even in all or the majority of all the lots of the tribes, there was remnants of Hamitic nations that was there. We did not fully eradicate it out where it was just only Israel in the land. No. There was some that were still left there, dwelling there, tributaries and so forth and so on. Or we just couldn't fully get them out. And we just said, you know what, let them stay over there. I don't want to deal with them, right? We are good where we are. So reading on in verse 4, it says, and they were, these Hamitic nations, to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. Right? So they were going to be that sparring partner. They were going to be that opposition of men and women left in the land to see if they would keep the covenant. Verse 5, and the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, or Perizzites. I said parasites, right? And Perizzites, and Hivites and Jebusites. One could look at them as parasites. I don't know if that came from there, but right. So it's just showing you that we was amongst each other, kind of sort of like in certain areas now. You have your own area, but you got other people, other nations that live amongst you, right? That's like growing up in the hood. We had, Israel was there, but we did have some Edomites there. You did have some Hamitic people there. You may have a few Elamites there, what have you, that dwelt among you. And then you were curious about what they were doing. Verse 6, and they took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to their sons and served their gods, right? So this was the first, time now we're seeing where as a nation in the land, the new generation that came out are now forging alliances with these nations. When you have a son or daughter take a son or daughter of another nation, there is some form of a mesh, right? You see it even at weddings, where now you got to come to agreement. I believe in this and you believe in that. So how are we going to do our ceremony, right? So we're going to take aspects of both. We're going to honor your God. We're going to honor my God at our ceremony. And that is the beginning now of compromising the Most High for something else by doing that marriage. And then customs come into play. Some customs that are not allowed by the Most High, but that's your wife or that's your husband. And then that becomes the strain of the battle of what it is that I'm going to accept or not. Imagine someone who's Islamic who marries someone who's Catholic or Christian, and they keep Christmas, but Muslims don't deal with Christmas. So now you got to have that balance. Now you got to have that compromise and say, okay, well, we won't do a tree, but we'll give gifts, right? Or Ramadan comes in and it's like, okay, well, we don't eat during the day. We only eat at night. So for those 30 days or whatever period of time is, so, okay, we're going to compromise and we're going to do your Ramadan, right? Or vice versa. We're going to do your whatever Easter, right? And it becomes that. It's just not a physical thing. And most people look at, oh, well, if the two love each other, if the two people love each other, who are you to dictate love? Well, when God said he is love, he's the one that dictates that, right? Specifically amongst Israel. So when God said he is love, then he gives us the definition of what love is. It is the encompassing of all those commandments. And that marriage now will just break that love, right? Because you now are going to have to compromise.
Right. And just to show that the aspect of war, it can take many different facets. Mentally, cultural war, identity war. That's why Mosai left those people there. All that is part of the war. It's not just the full-blown out, the physical war, which is part of it, but it's the whole aspect of us being around it and warring in our mind against those people with all this ideology, culture, and doctrines, everything that they stand for is bringing out. All that is part of the war, it's part of the test.
Right. Now, let me put some perspective on this, right? Because some will say, we had concubines and things that were of other nations, right? So what's up with that, right? The difference here in what we're reading and what happens in today's society is that men who took concubines of other nations due to either war, right? Most of the times it was because of war. You went and took a land and you destroyed, killed the men and the wives, those who you found to be, fair or good looking or what have you, you went and took them as a concubine. But even in taking them as a concubine, there's a law and what you had to do to even have that done. They had to shave their hair and pare their nails, right? To now break down that ideology of you being your own person. You are now being submissive to the Most High's commandment under that man. This is not what happens, right? Because now there is no submission to this. Nowadays, it's 50-50. Nowadays, you even have it where it's 60-40 in favor for the women. So the order of things is just not right, number one. And then the way in which we go about now still honoring and worshiping the Most High is not done, right? Now, in Israel, there are certain brothers who I know, I'm not calling out anybody, right, that have wives who are of other nations, right? And their rhetoric is that these women are under the order of the Most High. They do it all. They wear the dresses. They have their hair covered. They have fringes. They understand the holy days and things of that nature, right? According to the scriptures and how things work with concubines and women of other nations, that's in order, right? But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about just regular marriage, right? And then in a regular marriage, in the sense of society, it now breaks down this. It breaks down the order of the Most High. Because like we just read, it says that they took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to their sons and served their gods. That's the breakdown. It was never that we were going to leave the Most High and go serve other gods. It was supposed to serve the Most High with this order, right? And that is the straw that's now going to break the sheep's back. I'm not going to say a camel, but the sheep's back relationship with the Most High, right?
And whenever it comes to that's a whole different topic. That's a big issue right here. Even dealing with the concubines, dealing with women, period. That's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let alone we don't even understand how to deal with our women, and then we're gonna take on women of the other nation.
Right. There's as they say in society, there's levels to this, right? There's certain things like a man doesn't just come into the truth, right? And then he's, if you go into the order of how the Most High sets up rank, right? A man doesn't come in within a month and he's now captain of 10,000 or what have you. No, you gotta build up your spirit to be able to take that position. You got to now prove yourself and prove it to others that you are worthy to take that step to do whatever it may be, right? Even just with marriage in Israel, if you marry a woman, you have to make sure that you have taken the necessary measures to build yourself up to say, you know what, I am prepared to go and now marry this woman. I now have I've learned and I've tried and I've discussed everything it is that I need to know to put in play when I marry this woman. Right? The food, shelter, nurturing, the teaching, all that. When I have kids, all of that you prepare yourself for. It's not the same nowadays. It's like most people don't prepare themselves for nothing. You just go and just do it. Just off of lust, just off the surface things. Don't know nothing about anybody. A lot of us who are even in this truth now fell victim to that, where you probably, came into this truth married or probably didn't have that full understanding and you went and married someone, and then later on you find out, man, I should have gone away, going about things this way, and maybe it would have been stronger and such than what things happen. So you say, you know what? It is what it is. Now I'm still going to apply these principles and do the things that I'm supposed to do, right? There's a lot of things that we didn't know before we came into the truth that you now learn, that you now say, dag, if I'd have known that, I would have never done that. I never would have ate that. I would never went and started worshiping that and doing that. But now you did. Wash that under the table and now move forward with learning these principles. So it takes time sometimes to build that stuff up, right? So we're getting a wife, it takes time for a man to come and deal with it. Getting the concubine is a different level because those was things when we had our kingdom. We was in some level of a structure, right? To be able to now have this and then have that all in perfect harmony. You got people who just want to come in and shoot because they read the scriptures that you can get concubines or have multiple wives and everything else. And they're not thinking on law. They're not thinking on order or responsibility and things that they need to do. They're just thinking on, I can have me a couple wives and even a concubine if I want. And I can do it in the name of the Most High. Oh man, ain't nobody can say nothing against me now because God said it, right? That's carnal.
That's a big problem because that's why you said the level to it. Even dealing with your one wife, that's a whole. You gotta be on that level. Even when the scripture says women are wicked vessel, to really understand what it is, to not diminish her and know when to fall back. And at the same time, until you old men are poor, that's the hierarchy. You got to know how to step back so that she can deploy herself and be, the wife that you want to be. You don't want to be all the time, be the one doing everything. You want to do everything in the house. That's the problem too. So it's like there's levels to this thing to the point where you may even underestimate the power or the intelligence of a woman. That can even be your downfall if we misapply when it says unto you own alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one.
Okay. All right, let's read on verse 7. It's Oh, Salah.
Verse 4, once you get pulled up from chicks from the dictionary.com, you look up war of nerves. I kind of stumbled on this term. You guys are talking about most high being man of war. And you look up the term war of nerves on dictionary.com. It says, a conflict using psychological techniques and false movement, rather than direct violence in order to confuse or intimidate an enemy. So it's just showing how, what the brothers are saying, warfare isn't just, grab a sword, grab a gun, act like other aspects of war too. And as the Most High person knows, he made man, right? Even wicked men. All the aspects that go into it. It's not just physical, it's also mental and spiritual. I just think it's interesting that they have this, if you look it up, and now you have to consider it. Okay, where is this war being waged? How is war being waged in the past and in the present? And then looking at the scripture, we can see, Esau by the sword we shall live. We can look at him in particular, not just him, but especially him, to see, wow, where is he in war in the past and the present? And on top of it, also, even in this time, we have to have a warlike mentality in everything. We always have to be in a warlike mentality every day, because nobody gives you anything for free, especially in this kingdom. So it's like we got to put the same armor that the Most High said he's a man of war. We always have to be in a warlike mentality on everything.
It's not even anybody trying to give you for free. It's what they're trying to take from you.
Right.
Or make of you. Okay. So Judges 3:7, it says, and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and forgot the Lord their power and served Balaam and the groves, right? So what caused this? The marriages, right? Because everyone is coming with their own gods and their customs. And now you're serving, your spouse to a certain extent, right? Go real quick, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Hold on one sec. So this is 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 28, right? It says, and if thou marry, thou hast not sinned. So this is Paul who did not have any wives, right? Gave himself up, was like a spiritual eunuch for the Most High, devoted all his time, effort to the teaching and upliftment of the nation. And he thought, it would be a good idea if everybody was like me. That means we would have 100% time to devote to going and doing the business of the Most High, right? So it says, and if thou marry, thou hast not sinned. Meaning, if it's some of us who say, listen, man, I hear what you're saying, Paul, but I'm going to get me a wife, right? I'm going to have me a family. This is what I want to do. So he's saying, even though I'm advising that, if y'all choose to go marry, that's not a sin. The Most High set that up in the beginning, be fruitful and multiply. So don't think that you are off because you now go and get a wife. It says, and if a virgin marry, she have not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you, right? So even if a woman who's now virgin, she has not dealt with any man, and she wants to kind of like give herself to the Most High. She's about also the Most High's business, worship and prayer and things that pertain to her role in now building a nation. But if she says, I want to have a husband and I want to have kids, you haven't done anything wrong either, sis. That's a beautiful thing. I'm just saying such and such. This is kind of like, spiritual advisement for those who want to do this. If you choose that, it's a blessing, but you're going to have some trouble, right? Because you got to deal with the carnality, if that's the word, of dealing with each other, of learning each other in this society. You now learning what my likes are, his likes are, some of them don't mesh well, and how much am I going to compromise? All that takes time away from doing the work of the Most High, right? You now, well, what is he like? Or what is she like? These are the cares of the world. You're going out and spending time in the stores and the shops, buying gifts, or wanting to go somewhere to spend a quality time. All of those things are beautiful. But if Pequod is relying on me, let's say Wednesday, Samak, I need you to come with me to go, and we're going to go down to 82nd Street. I don't know if there is an 82nd. We're going to go down to 82nd Street to do such and such. I'm like, dang, I already got plans. You know, we're going out that night, right? We scheduled that a while ago, so I'm unavailable, right? That's what Paul was trying to think of, to try to not fall victim to. He wanted to have more and more people available. But me going and doing that is still something that we need to do, right? But there's going to be times where, yeah, I'm going to have an argument. I'm going to be beefing with my wife or something, and vice versa at times, right? To deal with the troubles of the flesh, right? In various different levels. Jump down to verse 32. I started with 28. That chapter is good as it pertains to this, but I'm just trying to pick out certain things. So verse 32 says, but I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried care for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. This ain't talking about all single men. It's talking about all righteous men that's walking in this truth. Those men who are unmarried, who are now have a lot of leisure, have more time, effort, resources to go and doing the things of the Most High. They don't have to worry about a wife and this, that, and the third. That's what it's saying. Verse 33. But he that is married care for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. Right? So now those who have wives, not to say that even any man that's in the truth is carnal, where he just takes away, he's not dealing with the Most High, and he's only dealing with his wife. Those who are in the world, that's what they do. Those who are in the world, that's how their thought process is. It's all about, you know, I think we talked about it before. I had this conversation with my wife a few weeks ago, that there was a show, a comedy show, and a movie. Chris Rock made a comment about looking in the mirror, then get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and say, F your life. Now let's go and please her, right? Because that's kind of what society has branded it to be. Happy wife, happy life. So I got to go and make, so that's that caring for things that are carnal in the world to please each other. It's not so much that pleasing the Most High, even though it's a good thing to have a good bond in a relationship to a husband and a wife, but there's those other things that just takes away certain time and effort from those brothers who want to go out there 5 days a week, 6 days a week and do the work, right? Because they see that the harvest is plenteous. Like, yo, man, we need more oxygen out here.
I want to say this.
They said that let me make sure my volume is up as loud so they can't hear you too much. It said speak a little louder.
Fine.
Okay.
Right, I would say is that having wife in this kingdom, it's a gift and a curse. And not having wife in this kingdom is a gift and a curse. It's all depends what level you are spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like because even women have so much potential that sometimes they don't even know what they have. And I can reference Matthew chapter 15, verse 21 to 28, right? I can't write it down. I just references Matthew 15, 21 to 28, when Yahushua was having a conversation. And every time Yahushua is having a conversation with a woman, he take the opportunity to teach the disciples something about that situation. Mm-hmm. Because he get to a point where he called that woman a dog. That's pretty much what we usually see, that aspect. But there's another level to it. To the point where she called that woman a dog, and that woman accepted that she is a dog. It's just to show you women, when they want to do something, they in that mentality, they're going to get it. They come out together. If the kids at home and crying, they want to, for survival's sake, they're going to do it. They're going to put their ego aside and just go and do it. So that aspect of it, even though that she called her a dog, but she said, yeah, even yet the dog eat off what fall on the master's table. And various other examples where everybody was, banging against Yahushua in the crowd, and the woman, she had determined, I'm gonna go coming from home, and I'm gonna just, if I can just touch him, I'll be healed. She already had that put in her head, determined. So when the woman is determined to do something, if you're not righteous, and that woman is not righteous, you're gonna end up following for under a whip if you're not strong mentally and spiritually.
Done.
What I grew.
You look it up? Come on, Kahan. Say again. So just based on context, right? Let's go to Exodus chapter 34. Let's look at context. Sometimes there's what they call context clues. Yeah. Exodus 34 and Exodus 34 and I'm going to read from 11. So Exodus 34 and 11 says, observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous power. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice, and thou take of their daughters and thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a-whoring after their gods. So that covenant, that agreement, marriage is a covenant and an agreement, right? So now once you make that covenant and agreement with them, you are now taking all that comes with them, right? So now you take that woman to be your wife, and she's going to come with things that's going to say, babe, can you do this for me? Can you set this up for me? Right? And the men are not as strong in making those rational slap the table decisions to say no. Right? And then it's like you're saying, like we just read, Paul said, we kind of care for our wives and care for our husbands, and we care for the things of the world, and you start giving them these gifts. You start breaking down over time, which became a snare under King Solomon when he had these women of other nations. And he got up there in his age, and they came to him with setting up altars and caused his heart to steer away from the Most High, right? He didn't intend for it to go that. No one goes in and say, I'm going to marry this woman and, I'm just going to forget the Most High. No, right? You're going to go marry this woman, and you thinking that you're going to stay firm with the Most High. And then time goes by, a month, a year, and all of a sudden you find out that 3 years in and you got something in your house, a picture there. Like, what the heck is that? Well, it was, she broke me down. I just said, go ahead, man. I just said, go ahead. And then now the picture turns into a ritual or a custom, like it says. And then all of a sudden you start eating after the sacrifice, right? You don't think and say, well, I'm really just going to start eating the sacrifice of these false gods. But when you go to these banquets, when you go to these celebrations in honor of these days, that's exactly what you're doing. You're eating the sacrifice of these false gods. Some of it is some of it is deliberate, because you either just don't know what you're really doing, or you know what it is, but you minimize it. Ah, come on, man. It's just kid stuff. It's not, it's not that big a deal. And then that little small thing that you think, it becomes a bigger deal. And then now the curiosity says, well, I want to learn more about this. Yo, it's some good stuff up in here. Wow, I never knew that they did this. Like how my granddaddy used to do. They do the same thing. And now you all in because it's new and it's fresh and you want to. That is the beginnings. The Most High understands how it becomes that. We just didn't get it.
This is a class women, things like marriage.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Of course.
And in scriptures and different examples that the Yahushua bring out. But again, like I was saying earlier, when the women have something in mind, they're determined to do it, they won't sleep until they accomplish.
Right.
They won't sleep. When they have an equation to solve, they will make sure that they don't sleep. While you snoring and sleeping, you think everything is good. She's trying to formulate how she's gonna get that thing through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why if you find a woman that's virtuous, that's why their price is, because she's gonna make sure she gets things done righteously. So that's the level that the Most High put the women to. He knows. Even when we look at Yahushua in the relationship that Yahushua had with Mary, it's not so. We don't really see a relationship like mother and son, because you always wanted to make sure that he got the upper hand, that she never has control over him. Even when he was teaching, you know how sometimes you go out and teach, and your mother, they went and tell your mother, go to your mother and say, hey, your son is out there doing so and so. You got to go get him. He's causing ruckus out there. Then they go to your mother because they know your mother gonna be sensible, gonna talk to you any kind of way. Don't get involved in that thing. People talking them this, that, and the third. So try to convince you. And if you get into that emotion, that's it. That's why Yahushua said, don't you know I'm about my father's business? So he always had to get the upper hand. Like I said, we can go on and on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe we'll do that. It's an upcoming one.
He's telling my story. When I first came in, I went out with the brothers in Sabbath Yasharah before they went back. And my folks are the script since I was young, right? They still need to communicate with each other. Word got out what I was doing with who I was with at the time. We shot the mom. She thought I was losing it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first couple of months. And true, we were out there at camp on Friday afternoon. I'm like, wow, I'm gonna help out the brothers. And my boy looked at the camp. He was like, right now. We need to talk. And the brother just like, the brother put their hands up like, hey man. And then we went to the end of the street, went around the corner, and I saw him there. I was like, oh.
There's an intervention about to happen here.
So they both got in the car. They both came together. I said, wow, but we just read this in the scriptures about at a Most High will verse it was about love father and mother more than me or something like that. And how he'll use your family as a test. But yeah, I saw that thing. That actually rooted me deeper. I can see how other brothers and sisters are going through something like that. My folks are going out getting off crazy, when you're dealing with stuff. Cold like this. Because I even knew back then, wow, they sincerely do care, but they're sincere in their ignorance, not realize this is actually the key. And I always try to explain that to them too, but it wasn't that. It's more to the story, but it's just that.
The moral of the story is she was the one initiated the whole thing. She was pushing it, and then get with your dad, even though they don't see eye to eye, but for that one, she had to make sure she made it happen.
Right.
So it grows in trees,
but just not any tree. Like it's a like trees that they use as form of worship, to cut and make trees into like altars and different things as a form of worship. That's why I said the context clues kind of gives you certain things where you understand. Just like when in the law, when it says thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them, right? When you have certain things as a form of a deity or a worship, that's when it has principles and practices behind it the Most High doesn't want you to deal with. If you got a tree, there's nothing wrong with having a tree. It's these trees or these groves or these altars and things that are being used as a form of worship for sacrifice and other things that the nations did. And we copied that. We saw that and it intrigued us and we wanted to follow and see what that was about. right? And that's what it's dealing with. All right, so let's go back. Judges 3. We at verse 8 now. It says, therefore the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Chushan Rishathaim, Salak, Chushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, and the children of Israel served Chushan Rishathaim 8 years. So all for that, and this is not, just like a day. This is not like a day's thing that happened, like some incident happened where it was like a bunch of marriages in a day or within a week. This was over time. And then maybe over years or a couple years or what have you, that Israel started to sin in this manner, and the Most High then gave them over into the other nations. And it uses the word sold because remember, the Most High says, or when we read it in the New Testament, we are bought with a price. We are bought or joined to the Most High. Now, when we separate ourselves from it, it's like, all right, I'm going to give you over. I'm going to sell you to the nations, right? We're like the commodity of the Most High that now he can bring us and sell us off to our punishment or our judgment. So he didn't just come out and give currency. It's just a figurative way of saying that you now have been given over to these heathen for a period of 8 years. So 8 years, here it is, that we now was dwelling amongst them and living in our own land, happy and hungry, and everything was cool. And then all of a sudden he brings them and they conquer us, right? Verse 9, and when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, right? So here it is, Caleb's brother that came out of Egypt through the Red Sea with Joshua, his younger brother now, right? Who was probably young, really young when he came in. Now he's older. Now he's able to take the charge to be a captain of a host. The Most High raises him up to be a savior for Israel, right? But it said it didn't happen until Israel went and cried unto the Lord, right? Is it that crying that you see people just do in the streets where they're just yelling out, oh, why? It's not that type of cry, right? The children, when you cry to the Most High, you're opening up and being honest, right? Go to Judges, the 10th chapter. Go to Judges 10. 10 and 10. What was that last one I read? Exodus what?
34, verses 11 to 6.
Water. And now we at Judges 10 and 10, right? To show you when Israel cries to the Most High, what happens, right? So this is Judges 10 and 10. It says, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, we have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God and also served Baalim, right? Or Baal, right? So when we're crying to the Most High, we're now opening up to our transgression, right? And we're making repentance to the Most High and acknowledging our offense and then asking the Most High for help to now get these nations off our backs. We realized we was wrong. All right, we got to get rid of that stuff, right? So you start now in your heart removing yourself from these false gods. Then you start taking those measures to get those things from out of your habitations. Then the Most High says, okay, yeah, these guys is real. All right, now they realize what caused them to get in the situation. Now I'm going to choose one of their men, their righteous men, honorable men, chief men, and raise them up, put the spirit in him and allow him to go and deliver the nation, right? We'll see in the next chapter, a heart, right? So the Lord can do that, but he waits for Israel to hear, or he waits to hear the cries of Israel to see that they have recognized the error in their way, right? So going back, it's the same thing when you read Daniel's, the 9th chapter, the 3rd verse. You can write it down. We don't have to go to it. Daniel's 9:3, I think to like 7. where Daniel says the same thing. We have sinned, right? We have confusion of face, right? Only you, righteousness belongeth only to you. Once you now make that acknowledgement of your transgression, then the Most High is more accepting for him to deal with you as servants, right? So now reading on back in Judges 3:10 now, it says, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel and went out to war. And the Lord delivered Shushan-Rish-Athaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and his hand prevailed against Shushan-Rish-Athaim. Man, that name just kept coming up. And he prevailed. So the Most High first put the Spirit into Othniel, right? First put the Spirit in him, whether it be the spirit of might, the spirit of wisdom, because, you know, in war, you don't only need strength, you also need tactics, right? The Most High wants you to have these things so he can give you that. We see the Lord distributes those gifts to different men, like Samson, he had might. Daniel had interpretation. Daniel had counsel, right? He had all these different types of spirit to deal with the situation at hand, but it all comes from the Most High. He gave that spirit now into Othniel to now rise up and go and take down Mesopotamia's king. Verse 11, it says, and the land had rest 40 years, right? So 8 years we was in captivity, 40 years we had rest. 40 years we was worshiping the Most High and everything was good, right? And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. So when you now don't have your leader, your ruler, right, who now is providing and executing judgment, he dies. Now he's gone. There has not been someone with that same spirit to succeed him, to step his place. We read when Moses died, Moses had Moses anoint Joshua to be now the new captain of the host. And Israel accepted, and he kept that same spirit. So now when Othniel dies, there's nobody there. What happens? Israel goes a whoring. They go off.
That's why it's always good for, that's what continual legacy. And that's what the Yahushua did. He made sure that he built those disciples that were going to take over after he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always got to be and teaching is not so much the person that's teaching and how you pretty much watch those who are learning, so that if anything happens, the teaching can still continue and the culture and the tradition still continue.
Right.
So that's why you got to be careful how he's teaching other people that he's building, picking up the stuff so that they can carry on and doing it the same way for the next generation.
Right. What's interesting is, in hindsight, as I look at this, when we read, about how the law was a schoolmaster, and not only the law, even those who were teachers of the law. Because at a certain point, when you look at it, we always had, to an extent, remnants of specific leaders, saviors, right? Judges of the people who presided over us, right? And then that transitioned to having a king, right? We wanted to have a king now who was going to be over us like everybody else. But the Most High's intention was always for us to just do it based on our own heart, right? So when Yahushua came, right, we had Yahushua as a focal point. Yahushua was teaching, Yahushua was doing miracles, he was doing all these things, and then he sacrificed himself. But when we did the Passover, Yahushua had to stipulate and said, listen, the poor you're going to have all with you always, me you not, right? So since Yahushua left, we haven't had that figurehead like we had with Othniel or Moses or any of those men. We haven't had them. Once Yahushua left, the kingdom, all that went down, and now we out here fending for ourselves. And the Most High is like, okay, now you got to prove yourselves. I'm not going to send those same saviors like before. It's done. He is Yahushua. When he come back, then he'll come and deliver all of you. But right now, you got to prove your hearts. You got to make sure that you're doing it, not just because he said to do it, right? Because this is something that you want to do, right? It's in you to want to do it, right? And then we'll come back and then be in perfect harmony with having the right structure. But it kind of like groomed us all the while. Like we had, him for 40 years and he left. All right, well, let me see what y'all going to do. Now that you don't have somebody, let me see what y'all going to do. Look at that. It went and did evil again.
It's almost like the tools are there, everything you need is there. Even though I'm not there, you should be able to do things on your own. And that's why Yahweh said, don't worry, I'm going to go, but I'm going to send the Spirit. Right? To guide you, don't worry about it. But we still don't get it.
Right. Verse 12. Oh, Salah.
The next section. I looked up, I'm not sure if folks can hear me. I looked up the Hebrew for that word grove. Question. In the Hebrew, it says Strong's 842, which is Asherah. Then it says for the definition of the Hebrew word, it says groves for idol worship. It also says it's a direct reference to a Babylonian or Canaanite goddess. That's out there. Fortune and happiness, it says the supposed consort of Baal also represents her images. It also represents sacred trees or poles set up near an altar. And that same word is used in the law. You go back to Deuteronomy 16, I think, in 31, where it says you're not supposed to make a grove near any altar.
Yeah, that's the one, Digits 16. Yeah.
So it's the same Hebrew word. Okay. Grove in of itself, yeah, okay, look it up. You said it's But when you look it up in the Hebrew, you see, okay, it's a specific type of tree. It's not the same grove as any old grove, right? Because Most High made the tree.
Right.
It's going into trees used for a certain purpose.
And you'll see that in certain cultures with different nations. Even some of the northern tribes also copied that facet where you'll see those poles with images carved on the trees of the poles, and they set up in certain what they call sacred areas, right? Because now that became like a place of worship, or it became places that was hallowed. But they had these images carved on these trees or poles and specifically set in certain areas. Either something happened there and they wanted to now have these false gods now preside over it, or it was just a sacred place to go and worship. So that, transcends, when you look at it in its essence, yeah, it's just a tree. But they have now taken it and done something different to it to make it worshipable. And that's where the law speaks out against that. All right. Was that it in that? All right, 16. I think it was 16 and 21.
Oh, I said
16, 21 to 22. About the groves.
So it makes sense, right? Because they're going to build that. And all they're going to
All right, verse 12 says, and the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord, he has all different kind of, ways, different kind of nations that come against Mesopotamia, now Moab. He can bring Ammon, he can bring Esau, he can do whatever, using them as a catalyst or as a punishment. Verse 13, and he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. So now here is Moab, the king, went and got some allies, which was Ammon and Esau, to now come, or Amalek to come and now join in on bringing down Israel that was in the area of the city known as palm trees, which is what, Yahweh? City of palm trees? Jericho. We went through this before. Jericho, Deuteronomy 34 and 3, right? The city of palm trees is Jericho. So now that's where they went and smote Israel and possessed their land, right? Verse 14. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years, right? So we had Mesopotamian king ruled over us for 8 years. The Moabite king now had us for 18 years, right? All up in our land, taking over. Now, once you have something that's yours and you got somebody in there that's not, how in your mind it's just heartening or disheartening, right? Ishmael kind of tries to articulate that to a certain degree now over there in Palestine, but that's technically not their homeland either. They're there, but that's not their homeland. They don't know that. The same way Amalek that's over in the land doesn't know that that's not their land. But when you know that this is given to you by the Most High, and the Most High himself comes and helps you fight against your enemies to take it, and now you got somebody else there because you messed up, it's disheartening, right? Verse 15, but when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Jerah, a Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. So after 18 years, Israel then cried out, right? Someone, realized the error in their ways and kind of went out there and started teaching in concert together. They started to pray to the Most High. And the Most High said, okay, now your deliverer is going to be one of these Benjamite men, Ehud, left-handed, right? You left-handed? Yeah? Oh, the Benjamin, maybe you could have been Ehud when you was in your strength. Now you all, But back then, the Most High chose this man, Ehud. And it's funny, left-handed, and it's interesting that it calls out left-handed, because if you look at it in society, to be left-handed in certain aspects is considered to be abnormal, right? It's not normal to be left-handed, right?
Sinister in Latin.
Huh?
Sinister in Latin.
What's that?
Evil. Sinister.
Yeah.
In Latin. Evil.
Right.
Literally, actually.
Right.
But the opposite is dexterous.
Mm-hmm. Ambidextrous, right. So you'll see that there's certain benefits or things set aside, grants and whatever set aside for people who are left-handed, because certain things don't usually cater to them, right? So they'll say, okay, well, we'll give you extra favors because of this situation, because you're left-handed. Like there's scholarship money that's set aside for kids who go to school because they're left-handed, or certain grants when they're trying to get certain things done in their communities that's set aside by the state, city, or the government because you're left-handed. So it's just something to know to take advantage of if you were ever thinking of, you're left-handed, you were thinking of doing something to see if you can get some extra resources to support, check into it, right? But now going back to this, Ehud, the son of Jerah, a Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab, right? So this guy, Benjamite, was left-handed, right? Go to the 20. Which one is it? Give me 1 second here. The 20th chapter. Judges. Chapter 20. 20. All right, so this Judges chapter 20, verse 15. I don't know if it's something with Benjamin, but let's see. All right, Judges chapter 20 and 15, it says, and the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men that drew sword, beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. Among all this people, there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling stones at a hair's breadth and not miss. And the men of Israel beside Benjamin were numbered 400,000 that drew sword. All these were men of war. So you had these chosen men that was left-handed, but was nice at the art of war and skills, even not just with sword. Right. So as I say that, it was an abnormal thing, or was classified as an abnormal thing here in society. No, not technically. Right. The Most High said, listen, these guys was nice and they was left-handed. So it could be added thing to you depending on how the Most High gives you certain skills and gifts. All right. So all those Benjamites out there. Right. All right. Let's go back. Chapter 3 and 16 now. That's a lot.
You didn't mention the irony of Benjamin. Son of the right.
Mm-hmm.
How ironic he is.
All these left-handed guys play, right? Benjamin, son of the right, Ehud left-handed, right? Verse 16, but Ehud made him a dagger which had 2 edges of a cubit length, and he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh, right? So him being left-handed, he put it on his right thigh to be able to, get and choose, right? If you right-handed, it would have been over here, and then you do it that way, right? So here it is. He had a dagger or some kind of a nice knife that had edges on both sides that was really nicely defined, right?
Keep it right there. Stop it up right here.
Right. It says a cubit length, right? It says, and he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man. So in order to do this 18 years, right, Israel was now under their order. So, of course, now once we're in captivity, we are tributaries as well. We're paying taxes and giving offerings and gifts to this person. So it wasn't just some random, hey, we're going to give the king a gift. No, this is something that we did. So now Eglon was going to be the one that was chosen. He was the new leader of the people, the new savior of the people. And now he was going to be the one that was going to deliver this gift to the king, this Moabite king, right? And I offered it to him, and then now use that opportunity to save or deliver Israel. You want to say something?
Like bringing gift to king is something that is in our custom. And the Most High even set it up. It's almost like when we come to see the Most High to his house to come to worship and service, the Most High said, "Do not come into me." It's almost like it's a disrespect, and it doesn't show how the king and his territory bless you to bring offers from what you've been blessing your office. So to bring the gift, the type of gift you bring also symbolize how you view it. It's all a mental thing and spiritual thing too. In a way, what kind of gift you bring and how the manner how you bring it, how you've been blessed, things like all that show how you view the king. Right.
And that goes into when you read in the New Testament, I think in Romans, when it talks about hospitality, right? We did that for the Most High on holy days and certain things. We did that for kings. We did that for men of the Most High. When you wanted to go see a man of God, you just didn't come empty-handed. You came with an offering or something for him, right? So that transcended into now just general hospitality. We kind of see it a little bit today when someone now is going to somebody's house and bring a bottle of wine, or they bring some flowers, or they bring something as an offering or a gift for them inviting you to their home, right? That's that hospitality that now is just transcended into what just seems morally right to do, right? And we learned that, based on, how we dealt with others that was prestigious, and then even those who are less, right?
And one more thing. Also, when Yahushua was born, even though he's a small child, they bring gifts because they went to see the king that was born. Where's the king that is born? And you bring that even the other nation, they know it. So it's like a kingdom culture. You gotta do it.
Come on.
Yeah, even when you bring a gift, you can't be like Malachi 1:7. He said, Malachi 1:7, see, ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, where have we polluted thee? In that ye say, the labor of the Lord is contemptible. And if you offer the blind the sacrifice, is it not evil? And if you offer the lame and sick, it is not evil. Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person? Said the Lord of hosts. So you're not gonna offer something blind, a blind animal. You're gonna offer something good. Because like the governor is not here, and you're not gonna accept it. Like if you're gonna offer a king a blind animal, you're not gonna do that. You're like, well, what's this?
Right.
It's not good.
Come. So verse 17 again, and he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man, right? So it's giving you, he's giving you his physical characteristic. He was one of those, like a Buddha, right? Verse 18, and when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bear the present, right? To kind of leave him, came with entourage. Now those that brought it, y'all go away, right? Doesn't get into the specifics of the present, but present was brought. All right, y'all leave us. Verse 19. But he himself, turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgal and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king, who said, keep silence. And all that stood by him went out from him, right? So now, as he's in this place, you know, he said, hey, there's furthermore. It's not the only reason why I'm here to bring this gift. I got something else to tell you, but I can't let everybody else hear. So the king is like, all right, everybody, I got to go. I got to leave, right? It says, verse 20, and Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from God unto thee. And he arose out of his seat, right? So, you know, sometimes the Bible gets descriptive to let you know, like, you know, we talk about certain kings and, you know, how much wealth and prominence that he had. Like, yeah, he had a summer parlor, like a certain area that was just created just for his own relaxation, right? So this is where he chose to have this discussion. So he's in there and he's like, all right, I got to tell you something. Most High wanted me to tell you something. What? Now he's sitting up and he's ready to now being intrigued to hear what the word is. It says, verse 21, and Ehud put forth his left hand and took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly, right? So with one motion, as he's sitting up and everyone's gone, boom, right? And it's dead and it's inside his belly. But it's just not inside his belly. It says in verse 22.
Because things that if you're going to go to keep, they probably search him and didn't find him.
Right.
It's dagger, but you know, because usually search before you go to the king and all that.
Right. So you're saying there's certain places that they didn't want to search.
Yeah, they probably didn't find that.
Right.
Because usually search it that in weapon.
Right. That's like you go to certain clubs, you know, outside of a lie detector, they have the pat down, right? And you know, sometimes they go through the pat down. I'm like, yo, you come on, you been a little watch when you pat me, or watch when you pat my girl, man. You getting a little, and they'll bring a woman. But sometimes you know, you go through it so much with the pat downs, you know what areas they're not really going to check, right? So you see,
like, right, yeah,
right. Because when you normally, like when you go into a club and they get the pat down and don't have a metal detector, they just patting here. But they're not patting your boot like that, because you can have it. You can have a little small knife in your boot, under your feet, a gun too, right? I seen a woman sneak a little a gun, a revolver that was about that size into prison. I don't know how she did it, but she snuck it into prison and was planning to use it until she got found out, right? But yeah, they didn't find this dagger, and maybe it's the spirit of the Most High that had it where they just couldn't find it, because the Most High was about to deliver Israel from King of Moab, right?
When you look at this, those people who push God is love, you said earlier, love, they're gonna have a hard time explaining this. And when they read Exodus 20, they're gonna have a hard time showing this.
Mm-hmm.
Because right here, the Most High sent a message, and this guy is a kill message.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how do you explain that contradiction in the Bible?
It's like a secret assassin. Ehud was a secret assassin, right? Verse 22, it says, and the haft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed upon the blade, so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly, and the dirt came out, right? So it's like he jabs him in there, his hand is in there, and he's trying to take the knife out, but he couldn't get it out because it's now caught up in there. So he didn't just probably takes his hand out, and as it comes out, all of the stuff that's inside of his belly and his guts just all pour out right there. That's what it talks about with the dirt. It's not talking about real dirt just poured out, but it's the filth, the refuse, of everything that was in his stomach came out. Yeah, that he did.
The fact that
wrapped around it.
Over it and put it in even more.
Yep. It says in 23, then Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked them, right? So it's like, all right, now, because remember, this was, and this is why the details of this summer parlor was mentioned, right? To kind of get context behind how he was able to go and do this and what's about to transpire. Because this was a place of his own sanctuary, right? So now what's about to happen is not going to seem far-fetched that what transpires upon his death. So now Ehud now kills him. He's sitting up there dying, bleeding out. Cleans himself off, because you got blood all on him. His hand was in there, clean it off, leaves, closes the doors, and then now goes out to where the rest of the people are, right? So now this is where time gonna pass on, right? I'm reading it again, verse 23. The Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked them. When he was gone out, his servants came, and they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked. They said, surely he covereth his feet in his summer chamber. Meaning he's now going through his own little spa type thing. This is what he do, right? He locked the door. He don't want to be bothered. We're going to leave the king alone, right? We know how we get when people be bothering him. We're going to let him be. So now this gives opportunity for Ehud to do what? Escape, get out, right? He was smart enough to lock the door so that it would give him time to leave, right? Verse 25. And they tarried till they were ashamed. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore, they took a key and opened them. And behold, their Lord was fallen down dead on the earth, right? So after a while, it's like, yo, he's been in there for a long time. He never really been in this long. Nah, man, something went on. So now they go and check out and the doors is locked. Yo, they banging on the door. King, open the door. He ain't opening the door. Somebody get the key, right? Get the key, go in, right? He's done. Yeah. Right. Taking too long. Yeah. Verse 26. And Ehud escaped while they tarried and passed beyond the quarries and escaped unto Seirath. And it came to pass when he was come that he blew a trumpet in the mountain of Ephraim. And the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. Right. So now you know what was done. Their king, their leader, and you know what usually happens when your leader is now killed. Right. That sucks the life out of you as an army or as a people. Right. Even the same thing with Israel. When Judas died or Jonathan died, it was kind of like, what are we going to do? Right. Until someone else stepped up to be the captain of the host, then we was now, re-energized. So here he knew that this would be one of those things that would cause, worry and dissension within their nation. Now is the time to rise up, right? Blow the trumpet. Everyone that was doing it in that region of Mount Ephraim, they got the charge and he led the charge, right? That's what it says. And he went before them as the captain of the host, the savior. Verse 28. And he said unto them, follow after me, for the Lord hath delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. And they went down after him and took the fords of Jordan toward Moab and suffered not a man to pass over, right? So as they're going, they're making sure they're taking out certain areas and locking it down. Right. And no person is going to be able to now pass through that area because it's not in their control. 29. And they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty. All lusty. I think if you look up that one, and I think it also says fat or something like that. Right. And all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. Right. So you had men that were lusty, and then you had some men of valor. Like these was honorable men. These was people who could fight, right? Who had done great things, right? Yeah. But they got taken out, right? All of them. Verse 30. Yeah, Shaolin and all whatever types of kung fu they had didn't match up. Didn't matter, right? It says, so Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years, 80 years after Ehud had delivered them, that we now have rest and no issues, no worries. The left-handed assassin went and jabbed him and got out and led the charge to go and deliver us from out of the hand of the Moabites, right? So something like that, the Most High can raise up one man to go and deliver a whole nation of people into your hand, and then put the spirit in all of us. And there we back. Verse 31. And after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad. And he also delivered Israel. So it's like a long stick that you use to tend to the ox. Some of them have hooks on them or little things, edges at the end of them. He was able to, say again? Like a cattle prod. He was able to whop, 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 whop. You see the jokers be using it? Yeah, he was taking them out. Imagine, like, you see, how many say? He took 600. So in my mind, I'm envisioning him standing there, like looking at all of them, like how they show these kung fu movies, like, oh, y'all want to mess with me? He just pop, they all charging, and he just slicing and dicing as he went, right? But it doesn't get into this last verse doesn't get into the actual context behind it. It just mentions him, Shamgar, as another judge at that time that came and helped deliver them. Now, the beauty of this, it might be some other, if you was ever a historian buff and you reading about something in Africa somewhere, and they got some history about something on the wall or something on whatever, and they reference this, right? There was some guy with one stick, he was able to kill a lot of our great men. You're like, a guy with one stick, that's kind of vague. It's kind of like, wait a minute. Did the Bible talk about a guy who was able to kill 600 men with an ox goad? Could that be the same thing, right? And then you have that correlation. But here it does give Shamgar his just due, right? It mentions him as one of those saviors or judges of Israel.
You never see that in Eureka? How do you use that thing for the
I just took a picture of it. Yeah.
But you ever witness it and see it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it because I look at the picture and I just look in. And then I mean,
I said when you were in Jamaica.
He didn't answer the question. He said what he saw.
I don't remember that anymore. I think like 14.
You had enough time to see it.
Yeah, 14. Yeah. No, you never seen it. He wasn't out there in the within rural areas dealing with the cattle and stuff. All right, so that's chapter 3. All right, we're going to roll on into 4. It's only 20-something verses in 4. We'll see if we get through this, right? So who would he have? We had Othniel, Ehud, and Shamgar, right? The first judges that we read about so far. All right. Now, chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "And the children of Israel, again, after these 80 years, or after Shamgar, whatever happened with that, again did evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor. The captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harasheth of the Gentiles." Right. So it is again another time Israel goes a whoring after other gods, following after their customs, eating after their sacrifices, making marriage with their people. Now the Most High is upset. He's going to raise up another king to come and now take Israel down, right? Remember, what is that in Daniel's or Sam? I think it's 1 Samuel and Daniel's, where it says he's the one that raises up kings. I think it says it Samuel's 8, Daniel's 7. Yeah. Yeah, if you can find that for me, Baba Kwasha. Daniel 2:44? Okay. All right. Daniel's chapter 2. Mm-hmm. Come on, if you find it, let me know about the shot. So verse 3, it says, "And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron." 2:21, Daniel's 2:21. If you can read that, Baba Kushan.
I'll start with 19 and read down to 21.
So Daniel chapter 2, verse 19. Daniel 2 and 19.
Hold down to 23. Daniel 2 and 19, it says, Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision, and Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Verse 20. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for his wisdom and might are his. 21. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removed kings and set up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. 22. He revealed the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwell with him. 23. I thank thee and praise thee, O God of my fathers, whom has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desire of thee. But thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter.
Gun. So when it specifically the reference here, when it even comes to the other nations, the Most High raises up certain men within those other nations as well, right? He raises up kings amongst Israel, but he also does that for any nation. He has control over that, right? So here, using Jabin, the king of Canaan, this is, the Most High's power and will to have him now be the one that was going to be in charge during this time. So I'm going to read verse 3 again. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron. It's like kind of having, look at Esau's army now with different tanks and jets and fighter planes and, all different types of weapons of war that most other countries or armies don't have, right? So it puts them at an advantage over everyone, where you just come in with actual horses and spears. They have chariots of iron, right? It says, in 20 years, he mightily oppressed the children of Israel. So it went from 8 years to 18 years to now 20 years. They dealt with this oppression by Canaan. Verse 4, and Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. So now here it is, you have Deborah, a woman who is now going to be referenced as being a judge and a savior, so to speak, for the nation of Israel. Now, Deborah is usually, how should I say, used as a pawn in today's type of ministries, right? A lot of the different churches and different ministries will reference Deborah to co-sign women now being the ones who are leading and heading up churches and congregations, because they say, see here, as you read this in Judges, she was a judge. She ruled over Israel. So now I can be one sitting in front of everyone, presiding and doing certain things. But I know they just don't have full understanding of the Old Testament, even the New Testament that they're trying to now preach from, right? But we'll get into it real quick. You about to say something? All right. So first, let's go to Exodus, right? When we read about these prophetesses, right? Exodus chapter 15. So you read about Deborah being a prophetess. Who else was a prophetess? Huh? So this is Exodus chapter 15, verse 20. It says, and Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances, right? So now we know that Moses was the figurehead at that time. It says that he was king in Jeshurun over Israel, right? He had his brother and his sister, Aaron and Miriam, who was now underneath them as it pertained to rank, right? The Most High had to come and tell them, when you read Numbers, the 12th chapter, that sure, he will speak to others in visions and dreams and things of that nature, but Moses was different. He was set aside. He was set apart from how he would communicate with others to go and give them the message of what they needed to disclosed to the rest of the children of Israel. Miriam and Aaron was upset at that, right? When they came and said, why do you the only one that go and have face-to-face conversations with the Most High? But Miriam herself, Aaron, the prophets and prophetesses. So she got information that she also conveyed to the people, right? But she was still in order according to how the Most High set things up, right? So now you got Miriam as a prophetess and then led all the women when she went out.
And also there's a difference between speaking about something that's about to happen, that the message is like you see it, we'll not show it to you, you talk about it, versus instruction and teaching.
Right. To go to 2 Chronicles, the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 34. Second Chronicles, chapter 34. And I'm going to start at 20. Second Chronicles, chapter 34, verse 20. It says, and the king commanded Hilkiah and Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Abdon, the son of Micah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Isaiah, a servant of the king's, saying, go inquire of the Lord for me, and for them that are left in Israel and in Judah, concerning the words of the book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is poured out upon us, because our fathers have not kept the word of the Lord to do after all that is written in his book. And Hilkiah and they that the king had appointed went to Huldah, the prophetess, the wife of Shallum, the son of Tikvath, the son of Hazra, keeper of the wardrobe, right? So now here it is when they needed to go get the word of the Most High based on the knowledge that they now just received of us breaking the covenant, they went to this prophetess, right? To go and inquire of the Most High. It says now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college. That's where all of, those who are about wisdom and worshiping and dealing with the law, they hung out there, right? It says, and they spake to her to that effect. And she answered them thus, saith the Lord God of Israel, tell ye the man that sent you to me, right? And now she's gonna, like you said, be the messenger to now give the word that came from the Most High to be delivered to those who sent you, right? So this was something that was common when you had different men who was always taking a leadership role, that the Most High also had women who he used as well to speak out the prophecies and things that was going to come to pass, right? The announcement, right? The judgments. One more. Let's go to Luke. One that's common that most of us know about, right? Luke, the 2nd chapter. Luke, the 2nd chapter and the 36th verse. Luke 2 and 36. Yahweh Kanan, if you could read that, Baba Kushah.
Luke 2:36. And there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age and had lived with an husband 7 years from her virginity.
Keep going.
Verse 37. And she was a widow of about 84 years, which departed not from the temple, but served God with fasting and prayers night and day.
Keep going.
Verse 38. And she, coming in that instant, gave thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all them that looked for redemption in Israel.
And what?
That looked for redemption in Jerusalem.
I get it, right? Israel, Jerusalem, same thing, right?
Yeah.
So here is this sister, Asherite sister, right? Who now was dwelling in Jerusalem, a widow, right? Who now gave her life over to now the Most High. And the Most High now used her, and she was now a prophetess, right? And she spoke of the redemption in Jerusalem for those who wanted it. She gave out that prophecy that the Most High is coming back, whether it was in Deuteronomy, whether it was in Amos, whether it was here and there. She spoke of these things, right? She wasn't one who was the scribe. She wasn't one who was the priest. She was a prophetess, right? Go to Joel, the 2nd chapter. Joel, the 2nd chapter, 2:36. I think he stopped at 38. So Joel chapter 2 and verse 28. So Joel 2:28 says, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, right? Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. So the Lord here says that after these times, after our captivity was the brink of it, now when he starts raising us up again, he says that he's going to pour out his spirit. It says upon all flesh. But when it's talking about all flesh, it's talking about those chosen that are within Israel, right? It's not talking about all flesh of the whole world. It's not talking about all flesh within Israel. It's talking about all flesh that is within the remnant, the elect, the chosen of the Most High. They will have the spirit in them, and they will speak about things concerning the redemption of Israel, right? That's key. That's context. When you read up and around this total chapter, you understand that it's only speaking about Israel, right? Not only that, when you read further on at the last verse, verse 32, and it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance. So in that verse, it lets you know when it says whosoever, it ain't talking about everybody, because he further edifies and says in Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord have said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. So whosoever, all flesh, is dealing with those chosen elect few. But here, the reason why we went here is because it lets you know sons and daughters will be prophesying, right? There will be prophets and prophetesses that's going to come out of Israel that's going to give that word, right? So this is not anything foreign and new. It happened in the past. Some men are being raised up. Some women will be raised up to do just that. Now, watch this. Go to Revelations. Again, we're dealing with this, the prophetess aspect, and how some people take this out of context to further on their own desires, right? Or their own admiration. So this is Revelation chapter 2 and verse 19. Actually, I'm going to start at 18 to get the whole thing. This is Revelations 2 and 18. So Revelations 2 and 18 says, and unto the angel of the church of Thyatira, right? When it talks about the angel of the church, it's talking about the bishops or the men that set up over those churches. Not talking about Gabriel or Uriel and these other different celestial angels. It's talking about men that would be in the earth that have control over the church, or now is set up to be leaders over the church, We are messengers as well. Angel means messenger. So it says they're going to write this unto the church of Thyatira. These things saith the Son of God, who hath his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. Talking about Yahushua. I know thy works and charity and service and faith and thy patience and thy works, and the last to be more than the first. So you guys have in this church, y'all have a good spirit about y'all. Y'all patience, the faith, how you put others before you, all of these things. This is great. However, verse 20, notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman, Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. Right? So now here it is. You have women who will set themselves up, call themselves to be a prophetess, right? Because when you look at Miriam, when you look at what we're going to get into with Deborah, when you look at the sister in Chronicles, when you look at the sister in Luke, all of these sisters spoke of what was already been spoken of before. And sometimes you had to remind them, and then the Most High would show them snippets of certain things that wasn't shown before. These women were speaking of things out of their own hearts and setting themselves up to be something that they were not, right? Was this new? Drop that, go to Ezekiel. Hold your point 1 second. Go to Ezekiel, the 13th chapter, with these types of prophetesses that's even still doing what they're doing today, right? Ezekiel chapter 13 and 17. So it says in Ezekiel 13:17, likewise, thou son of man, set thy face against the daughters of thy people, which prophesy out of their own heart, and prophesy thou against them. So the Most High is letting you know you're going to have daughters, women that set up within your own people who are going to speak things that's not of the Most High, but they're going to speak things that's of their own heart, right? Which they think is morally sound and good. It says, set thy heart and prophesy against them. They have to be exposed. That's the way it is. These men and women. In this case, it's specifically talking about these women, Juanita Bynums and all of that set themselves up to speak things that's not of scripture, right? It says, and say, thus saith the Lord God, woe to the women that sew pillows to armholes and make kerchiefs upon the head of every stature to hunt souls. Will ye hunt the souls of my people? Will ye save the souls alive that come unto you? So it's figurative speech. They try to deck themselves and make them seem as if they are holy and chaste in that manner when people come to them. Make it seem so comfortable. Set things up where people look and say, yeah, this sister, she's wow, right? And then the rhetorical question is, are you going to come and save the souls alive that come to you? How can you do it when you speak of things of your own heart? You're not correcting them and showing them what I'm giving you as far as for what the judgment is. You're doing things of your own volition. Verse 20, wherefore thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against your pillows, wherewith ye there hunt the souls to make them fly. And I will tear them from your arms, and I will let the souls go, even the souls that ye hunt, to make them fly. So it's a lot of figurative speech when it talks about the arms and bringing people to comfort them and show them certain things. And then you give them this false narrative, this false information, and they go out and they sacrifice to these devils. And they follow all of these things that's not supposed to be meant to be done. And they fornicate spiritually and then physically because you give them a different ideology of what marriage is according to the Most High. So you have women in these last days, you had them back then, who set themselves up as prophetess. So now bring this to a fold because women use the scriptures, or churches use the scriptures to validate that this is allowable for them to go set these women up in these churches, right? You gonna say something? Oh, that you're gonna set these women up in these churches, but there's a different type of woman that is being described in the Bible as opposed to what they're doing, right? Go to 1 Corinthians. Shalom, man. 1 Corinthians, the 14th chapter. Shalom. Now, when we read this, right, you got to understand, as we're establishing the churches, we are in a culture and environment that's like, it's indicative of almost what it is today, right? So we now are rebuilding order within the churches. So it says this in 1 Corinthians 14 and 33. I think we read this, we ended with this last night. I'm gonna pick up from here, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. It says, for God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak in the church, right? So now you read this and you say, hold on, that it just stunt the growth of the women. Because you just went through when you spoke about these women as being prophetesses. So now how is it that New Testament, not Old Testament, New Testament is trying to shut down women? This is, what do they call it? Misogynistic, right? Bible is misogynistic, right? But understanding when we was back then during the time of Rome, even has the same type things now. They elevated and worshiped women, right? Goddesses, right? That's what you've seen when we read in the Acts. The men was out, oh, Diana, right? So now when you're worshiping these false gods of women, and now that elevated women into society for them to have a voice and to speak nonsense. So now we are people who was now wrapped up in that nonsense. And now here it is, you coming in the church thinking that you have that seat or that power to now go and spread some of this information. No. The first thing that Paul and the rest of those men did was go and reach those men, because the Most High established order starting with the men. You have to start with the men. You're not going to start with the men and the women at the same time. It starts with the men, right? Unto you, O men, are called, Proverbs 8:4. That was the order. So now once you get the men in order, have them remember and understand and renew themselves with the law. Okay, now we have the men in order. Now we got to go to step down to the women and get them in order. So they can't come into church and start teaching and doing certain things where the men are being raised up first, right? So this was the order and the climate back then within Corinth, within Rome, within Philippi. All of them had this same ideology of worshiping these gods and following Roman culture and custom. Pourquoi?
And you see the consistency of the Most High dealing with men, even from the creation. When he goes to give the instruction, when you read Genesis 2:16, he spoke to Adam. He didn't speak to Eve and give Eve the instruction. Adam told Eve about
1 Corinthians 14 is where we at.
Oh no, I was going to add a precept to that.
Hold on, but let him finish his point first.
right.
Yeah.
Adam was given the instruction. Adam taught Eve about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
Even after the transgression, the Most High did not even skip our hierarchy. He went to Adam and asked Adam, because he was dealing with Adam. So from the inception, everything was already set. The Most High dealing with them, right? On that level, on that front, when it comes to teaching and instruction.
Right.
Precept Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that head of every man is Christ, and head of a woman is the man.
Right.
So the man is the head.
Right. The man is the leader. The man has to be the focal point in the church, established and rooted up first. Right. And again, when you read this, so that you don't think that because if what we read in Joel, the 2nd chapter, about how the Most High would raise up sons and daughters, servants and handmaids, is speaking about the last days. But then we read here in the New Testament in Corinth, it seems that it's shutting down women. No, because then that would negate what Joel just prophesied, that the Most High would then put the Spirit in the women. It's not talking about shutting them down. It's establishing order in the churches. And then those women, just like the men, once they understand order, then they're going to go out and proceed in a righteous manner. Like I said, a person who walks through the door the first day, he's not going to be sitting up teaching or doing things or having authority over certain other individuals. It's not meant that way. There's order in how to do things. Remember, the Most High said, if you're going to do this, you got to be of a certain age. From here to here. That's how old you got to be. And then from here to here, then you could be considered like an elder. So all of that is order and structure. He's not about chaos. He's about order. So this is now how the church reestablishes order. But now silencing them for a minute, silencing them that they're not going to have that authoritative figure or usurp authority over men. Can't happen. But the Most High will put the Spirit in women. The Most High will send dreams and visions to women, and they will speak about these things in context. Because that's another class too about dreams and visions that people have. You got to be able to make a distinguishing factor between the two, right? Every dream ain't the Most High talking to you, right? Sometimes I be dreaming about work because I messed up at something. I'm like, man, I got to fix that. I'm not going to do that. I'm thinking about it before I go to bed, and I got a dream, and I'm dreaming about stuff in my mind. The Most High separates the two. Go ahead. So hold on 1 second. I got you, Zaquan. Let Paquan finish his point.
Right. On the same token, that's why even in the household, right, the men is the head of the household. Right? That's why it set the precedence. The woman cannot go, let's say if there's issue in the household, the woman cannot unilaterally take a decision and go see somebody and seek counsel. It has to be an agreement with the men. First, the men gotta agree. And then, if they decide that they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna have women who are gonna, I can't deal with him. I'm just gonna go. No, you gotta. If the man is provided our men, they're not in their right mind, then But in the churches, you can't have, like I see in the churches, the women just go to the pastor, and the men don't even know what's going on and go report on him. So that's giving that man order or give him authority on your own household.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the Most High wants everything to be done in order.
Right. And just before you make that point, just to add on what you're saying, Paquad, Salak Zaquan, even when you read in the law, as the relationship between men and women were ordered by the Most High, starting with Adam and Eve, and how he said the woman was going to be subject to her husband. But when you look at fathers and daughters, husbands and wives, that authority transitioned from a father having the say-so over his daughter. Once the daughter married the husband, now the husband now took the ownership or took that position. Now, that is according to hierarchy. It would be the same thing if Yahushua was here, right? Yahushua has a say-so of what we do. If he was here, no one could come and say, well, I'm going to usurp authority over Yahushua. No, the Most High set him up in that position. So that is his say-so, his call to say what we're going to do or who's going to be put in this position to say what or whatever. That is the order. And now, once you have that understanding, if you don't have that understanding, you are not willing to follow that order. It's going to be difficult for you to say, what do you mean I can't stand up here and say this? And it's not just so much even in the building, because sometimes we look at church as being inside of a building, right? Don't matter. It's not just a building. You can have a gathering or a group, and you are now speaking certain things out to the congregation and a certain authority, and you not in tune with this, right? I'm going to get to what type women were allowed to do certain type things according to the Spirit of the Most High after Elder Zaquan makes his point. Zaquan, you still there?
Yeah, shalom, Khan. Yeah, I just want to reiterate on the point you making. I mean, that you made earlier concerning Miriam in Exodus 15, 20, and 21. When you read about Miriam, the prophetess, and you read on what she did, she said she took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. So Miriam was a prophetess, but what she did, she was teaching the women. And like it says in Titus, the 2nd chapter.
Right, I was going to go there too, Kun.
In Titus, the 2nd chapter, I guess you could elaborate on more. 2nd chapter 3 through 5, it tells you what the woman, even though it's not mentioning that aged woman as a prophetess, but this is a prophetess, an aged woman, because they're talking about the leaders in Israel, and they talk about the aged woman teach the younger woman, and this is what they're teaching the younger woman. In addition, while they're bringing out prophecies or the knowledge that they have of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And as you said, in Corinth and Galatia, they were taking it upon themselves like, hey, I'm a prophetess, so I could even run my own church and have men coming up. But the women are supposed to teach the men. I mean, the women are supposed to teach the women and boys as they're growing up. But then at maybe 12 or whatever age, when they're mature enough to really learn and gravitate, that's when they learn from the men. So no feminine spirit is on them.
Kun. So to go with what you just pulled in reference in Titus 2 and 3, you could also reference 1 Timothy's chapter 2, verses 9 and 10, but actually goes all the way down to 12, but 10 is what I'm looking after, right? 1 Timothy's, he said Titus 2, 3 to 5. And then I'm going to read 1 Timothy's chapters 2, verses 9. Just write down 9 to 12, but I'm really looking for 10, right? So this is 1 Timothy chapter 2 and 9. It says, in like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, right? So when it gets into the mannerisms of a woman or a woman of God, this is what she would exude, right? Not someone who's all about the outer appearance, right? All surface, no inner, no spirit. That's not what the Lord's talking about when it pertains to women. It says in verse 10, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works. So now when you measure a woman and who's supposed to be a woman of God, that woman now has to profess godliness. That's how you measure if Juanita is a woman of God or if she's like the woman that was in Revelations, the 2nd chapter, like Jezebel, setting herself up to be a prophetess, but causing the people to commit fornication and idol worship, right? What's godliness? Godliness is synonymous with righteousness. What's righteousness? Righteousness is synonymous with the law and the keeping of the law, right? So that woman now is going to speak about all these things and stand behind them and then go out there and show her actions that she's falling in line with this. The same thing as a man would do, right? A righteous or a God-fearing man would do the exact same things in order or in the order of how the Most High has set it up, right? And then you read on further down back in Timothy's, it says, let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. What is she learning? Right? She's learning how to be a woman the same way the men are learning how to be a man. When you read it in Timothy, I think it's forget what chapter it is, when Timothy is told by Paul on how to even deal with the men, on how to deal with the structure in the church. You can't have things before it's time, right? Things have to be done in the manner in which it's conducive to establishing the church, right? You got the men established. Okay, cool. You got the women established. They in order. Cool. You know what the women going to do next? They're going to establish the children being in order, right? You can't have the children in order, but the wife or the mother ain't. Nah, I can't have that. Let them be quiet. Leave them home if they're not ready, if it's not the term, or y'all stay there. Be quiet, whatever. Let's get Yahukanan in order. Okay, Yahukanan is in order. He understands. Nabiyah understands. Pequod understands. Samak understands. Hey, all the brothers in the congregation is on point now. All right, let the women now learn. Whether they're going to learn if they're not married to anybody or they're a widow, they're going to come in and learn from the men godliness. And then they're going to get in and say, oh, okay, cool. Now we're going to do what Zaquan mentioned in Titus. We're going to go teach these other women the same thing and how to be keepers at home and this, that, and the third and so forth and so on. That's the order. At the same time that's happening, the Most High is still going to put the spirit in some women, but they're going to also be prophetesses. And they're going to be like Deborah and Miriam, and I forget the sister's name in 2 Chronicles. And they're going to be like Judith, right? When they now need to go and give sound judgment or guidance based on the Most High, giving it to them to give to the men. They're a helpmate, but they know that their position is where their position is, right? A helper is not looking to remove the person. Like if you in a job and you're brought in, you're not just coming in and saying, I'm going to take him out of his job. I'm plotting to remove him out of his job and I'm going to take that seat. That's the cutthroat way of society. Here, we're doing everything in order. The Most High says you've been here for a period of time. You raise up to this. Then you raise up to that. You are an aged woman and you learned all this. Now you're going to be, anointed with having that type of title and status. And then you're going to have that authority to do such and such.
That's why we can when everything is done in righteousness, the men of the Most High understand the hierarchy and the position that everybody plays, then everything will be working according to how the Most High wants. That's why a man of righteousness would let the woman be the woman and do what she's supposed to be doing accordingly, and she'll excel at it. Right. But if you want to jump and do everything that she's doing, including yours, you're going to have a problem.
Right. And you're going to have, and there has been, as we're reading now, even now, you're going to have women who are fervent and sound with wisdom. Based on their works, they are going to be one persons that people will come to talk to. Right. You have, and unable, you talk about OGs, right? And you've got these guys and whatever, but in the criminal manner or whatever, kind of carnal manner. But you have certain men and women who fit the mold where you go and you talk to them and they give you sound guidance, right? Say again? Like a big mama, right? Big mama give you sound guidance. Big mama's not looking to be big daddy. Big mama is big mama. And you can come and talk to big mama and then she can remind you of your position. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing? This is you. You're supposed to be here and doing that. Oh, man. Helping you along, building you up. That's what these type women did in the spirit, and then gave you that sound knowledge from the Most High as was given to them.
It's like the role is the woman preserve the life.
Mm-hmm.
They preserve the life.
Excuse me.
Shalom. 1 second, Gabar. Let Pequod finish his point.
Right. They preserve life.
Gun.
They nurture life.
Mm-hmm.
They bring things together as far as the household, right? But if they righteous, at the same time, if they unrighteous, they can break down the whole thing.
Yeah. If
you let them out of control.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the beauty of it. If a virtuous woman, you can sit back and let her explore herself in righteousness. You're gonna be amazed at what woman you have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the key is understand where everybody's possession is and let it be according to right.
Good. Gabar.
Yeah. Doesn't it say that she judged Israel?
Con. We didn't even get we didn't even get there yet. We just read the prophetess part. We didn't even read through the chapter. I just dealt with the prophetess and how prophetess in that title is taken out of context in today's realm, right? Sure, Deborah was like a judge in Israel at that time, not like a judge, was a judge at that time. One could say that Judith was like a judge at the time when she was in on or alive on the earth when you read the Apocrypha. You had women who were set up in the spirit to do great things. No one wants to diminish what the Most High has put in on women to have done for the nation. And that's why you have these different storylines where it highlights when women have done great things in Israel.
Even in their ignorance, you hear about the baby mama. I raised this, that, and that by myself, right? They did so much even in their limited. The men is out, but they got to do what they got to do. They can do things.
Con.
But just you got to make sure everything is perspective.
And it's perspective. Con. All right. So now with all that, let's go back since Gabar done segued us back, right? I know we don't went. we had Judges 4. We just stopped at verse 3. I mean verse 5. Actually, verse 4. Yeah, we just read verse 4. So I'm gonna read verse 4 again, and then we'll continue on. So this is Judges 4:4. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment, right? So now she has been that woman, that's that spirit that the Most High put in her, where people came to her for judgment. What saith the Most High? Most High says such and such. Go and do this, right? That's what her role at that time as judge was. And it's going to tell you as we read on. Verse 6, and she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take the 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and of the children of Zebulun? So now here it is. She's coming and saying, look, didn't the Most High tell you to go and do this? Right? The Most High showed me that he gave you this construction. What's going on? Right? So now as they know that she is a person of vessel or conduit that the Lord will speak to and show visions and give judgment, they want to hear from her of what they should do. She now is reminding him of what he was supposed to have been doing. I'm going to read it again. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and the children of Zebulun, and I will draw unto thee to the river Keshron Sierra, the captain of Jebun's army, and his chariots and his multitudes, and I will deliver him into thine hand. So he was supposed to have done this, but he didn't. He was reluctant. And the Lord is reminding him, listen, I'm going to deliver them into your hand. Watch what he says. Verse 8, and Barak said unto her, if thou will go with me, then I will go. Right? Showing you that this is like, what's the brother's name? Like Jonah. Jonah was supposed to go. Jonah was reluctant. He didn't want to go. So the Most High had to show him, oh, you're going to go. Oh, you're going to go. Here it was by the advice and the admonition of Deborah, because she was set up as that person that we can come and commune with when it came to things or thoughts that need to happen. Judith, I'm pretty sure Judith would have probably ended up being that way as well after she did what she did. She was already a righteous woman. She then came and gave sound advice to the men and then went and delivered Israel and then came back and dwelt with no man for a time. And I'm pretty sure men came up and said, well, I heard such and such said this. What do you say? Right? What do you say? In the spirit of the Most High, right? Right. Yep. After her husband died, she never met one of them.
Women won't give up even to death. They'll be right there with you. Not that righteous woman. Mm-hmm. They would not dare to bring somebody else even after you die. Just like when everybody bail out, the women that went even after the men they bail out, they were the one who go and bomb the body of Yahweh. Just show that they were with them even to death. They were right there. Mm-hmm. They did. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. So reading on verse 9. And she said, I will surely go with thee. Notwithstanding, the journey that thou takest shall not be for thine honor. For the Lord shall sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. And Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. So she now knew, because the Most High showed her of what was going to happen. So she like, all right, cool, I'll go with you. But when we go, this journey that we taking, it's going to not be for your honor. The Most High going to deliver Israel, or deliver Israel out of the hand of these heathen by someone else, which is going to be a woman, right? And it wasn't even going to be her. Right? It's not going to be her. She's prophesying about what's about to happen, letting Barak know. But Barak is now the captain of the host, right? She's going as a help. She ain't leading the army. He leading the army. The Most High told her, tell him to get his behind out there. I'm about to deliver them into his hand, right? Verse 10. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up with 10,000 men at his feet, and Deborah went up with him, right? So you got these Naphtalites and Zebulunites that's now rolling over there. Give me 1 second. There's a precept that I want to get about these men. Go to the next chapter. Judges chapter 5 and 18. It says, Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field, right? Judges 5 and 18. Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto death in the high places of the field. So when he now took these men out, these wasn't just, we read about Benjamin, we know about Judah, we know about Ephraim, but it was 12 of us, right? These men was about it too, right? Unto the death. You read about even Gad and Reuben and them, that they also operated this way, right? That they would go out to the death and not give up their honor. So certain men, chosen men, took that to the next level. And when he took them out, you know that you got somebody good behind you. When you got everybody who you know that this is kind of how they operate, you're definitely going to be encouraged and be courageous when you go out there for the fight. So let's go back to Judges 4 and 10. It says, and Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up with 10,000 men at his feet, and Deborah went up with him. Now Heber the Kenite, which was of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, had severed himself from the Kenites and pitched his tent into the plain of Zainim, which is by Kadesh. So you had a family of the Canaanites that separated himself and went and dwelt on his own, right? And they showed Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him, from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river of Kishon, right? So he come with his tanks, so to speak, or whatever they had back then that was made of iron, right? 900 of them, right? It says, and Deborah said unto Barak, up, for this is the day in which Yahweh hath delivered Sisera into thine hand. Is not the Lord going out before thee? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. So here it is. Now the time comes where now he's supposed to go and take this war, and the Most High is going to deliver it into his hands. Is it now the time? Look, the Most High is already going out before you, meaning the angels are already set in place, right? The angels are there. The men are going to come, but the angels is there as well to help him win this fight. Verse 15, and the Lord discomfited Sisera and all his chariots and all his hosts with the edge of the sword before Barak, so that Sisera lighted down off his chariot and fled away on his feet. So all his 900 chariots of iron and every other man on a horse or everyone running with a spear or a sword, they all got discomfited or beginning to now get slayed or slain in the field. Someone's running, and he's seeing this. Get down off his horse and start booking into different areas, right? It says, but Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles, and all the hosts of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. So he left, but he wanted to make sure their whole army was taken out, right? That they was done, right? So he let him leave, but he focused on his armies. Verse 17, howbeit Sisera fled away on his feet into the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. For there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera and said unto him, turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not. And when he had turned in unto her into the tent, she covered him with a mantle, right? It's almost kind of like reminiscent of during the slave days when you had runaway slaves and you had some Edomites or whatever that would allow you to come in, and they would hide you in their barns or hide you underneath in the basement or whatever. And then people come by, did you see any slaves coming through here? No, they kept going. They went that way, right? So this kind of gives you that impression of that's what's about to happen because they had a relationship in the past, right? So it says, verse 19, and he said unto her, give me, I pray thee, a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. And she opened up a bottle of milk and gave him drink and covered him. And again he said unto her, stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be, when any man doth come and inquire of thee and say, is there any man here? That thou shalt say, La, right? Anybody come looking for me, because I know they coming, right? Say, nah, he ain't come through here, right? So he's prepping the battlefield while he's being hidden. Verse 21, then Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent and took a hammer in her hand and went softly unto him and smote the nail into his temples and fastened it to the ground, for he was fast asleep and weary, so he died, right? So while this is going on, the spirit comes into her to go and do this. Who's doing this? The Most High. Why do we know it's the Most High? Because Deborah already prophesied about it before he even went to that tent. She knew nothing about this. This is all the Most High working to work with this woman to kill this man, right? While he's under her quote unquote protection. So she takes a knife out of the tent, and imagine the size of this knife. I mean, nail, right? You know, when you create a tent and you get the nail and you bang it in the dirt, these are some long nails for the tent. So now while he fast asleep, you know, I don't know, you know, they usually say warm milk or make a person go to sleep or whatever the case may be. I don't know what was in it, but he's fast asleep. And she tiptoes over to him and takes that thing, bam, right? That Most High had to give a mic to get it like, what's bang? And it just goes through, and it goes through, and his doggone head is nailed to the doggone ground, right? So now here it is. One who had us in captivity and derision for 20 years, right? Now fell to the hands of a woman. And sometimes the Lord, you know, not even in the scriptures, just in commonplace, when you go out in the world and you look at wars, it's dishonorable for a man to get killed or lose to a woman, right? It's dishonorable, right? You could say that's male chauvinism, like, why can't a woman be the man? That's always been that philosophy that we know men are physically stronger than women. Do you have strong women? Yes, you have strong women. But in this case, when we're reading the storyline, when the Most High wants to put the strength in a woman, he could put the strength in a woman and she could be as strong as Samson if he so wills it. But just in general case, women are the weaker vessel. So when a man goes out to war and he finds out that he now loses, and that's in anything. If you playing tennis, like how they had it with was it Billie Jean King? Yeah, and it was playing tennis. It was like, you know, he's supposed to beat her behind, right? But if she wins, If she wins, oh man, you know what people, oh, you lost to a girl, oh man, because it's that philosophy that men are supposed to dominate or beat women. When it comes to the physical, it may not be the mental. When it comes to the physical, that's supposed to be the case. So in a few times when you read the scripture, the Most High had it where a woman was used and went out and slayed. Same thing with Judah, went and killed a man. In this case, now that would be dishonor to their whole people, the rest of their kingdom. Yeah, the king got taken out by a woman, a wife of some no-name person. Like, what is this? They're right. Yeah. Yeah, because you look at a woman that's just such, and then you don't see that certain women are wise beyond their years, and or the Most High can put the spirit in them to now have that sense, whether it be spiritual or physical, to give them that ability, right? Yeah. Yep. Now, but yeah.
This is another good example of the Most High being a man of war, just like with Eglon in Egypt, because it shows that the Most High is like, you don't have to be direct in warfare, you don't have to be indirect to where Eglon was taken by surprise, because what? He was visited and he was at Egypt.
Right.
Same thing here, you know. JL was like, oh, it's a woman, she's giving me milk. Just put your guard down, it's part of warfare.
Same thing with Judith. Oh, she's beautiful. Look how beautiful she is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I won't say it. We'll probably read a couple of weeks after from now. It's not going to happen. This is going to happen again with a woman killing a mighty man.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come up again.
Crun.
Mm-hmm. See, like a key part of war, and they even teach us in the world, is deception.
Yep.
Or false positive, giving off the impression that you're peace. You flip on you get the advantage. You see our brother Esau, he's nasty back.
Right. And even on a carnal level, you'll see people use those same tactics. They'll send a woman. They say that you send them women to do a man's job, but because it's like you said, your guard is down, right? Oh, you know, she's looking like she's catering to you, right? She's giving off the vibe that she's into you. She's really not into you. She wants you to think that she's into you so you can let your guard down, and then she can go and rob you or even kill you, right? That's what usually happens. They had an ulterior motive, and this is kind of what they use their beauty, like Judith, to get your guard down, but their wisdom allowed them to prevail. Mm-hmm.
Right. They talk about that too, as far as you see videos of people who are coaching Americans, especially people from the West, when they go to countries that might not be as rich, second, third world countries to visit. They say, you know, they give you red flags to look out for. When you see people in new places, and they mention, you know, if you're out like dancing and partying, you're going there to, you know, looking for some quote unquote action, usually the porn pick. They say, watch out for, you know, women that's, you know, in social settings, extra friendly. You know, leave me here because it's like, if you look around, you might see the crucial with, once you get you, you know, out the car, get you like in a room or something, you think about the fornicate, that's when the crew comes in.
Yep, swoops in, yep.
So watch out for that. That can happen in America, of course.
Yeah.
But we hear him talk about that, we will see, watch out for this.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for Americans that go. You can tell, he's outside, he got money.
Mm-hmm.
What you usually get me is the woman that touched your house in the midst of everybody. She touched your house, and your house said, I felt somebody touch me. The disciples were there and said, who touched you, man? They're not paying attention. Your said, I thought somebody touched me. I felt virtue come out of me. So he knew, but they not even paying attention to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But the woman, she had a plan.
He was about to throng.
Yes, she had a plan.
One more thing, I was a fun, you probably remember this too. Spook sat by the door, right? His favorite movie. There's a scene in that where he's teaching the gang leaders, he's teaching like spy tactics. And there's a scene where he had a brother with a janitor's outfit, a mop and bucket. He's like, a black man with a mop and bucket, but anywhere in the world. You see him like going to like this office that Edomite has out of money. He's just like waving to him, you know, cleaning up. And Edomite, he's on the phone laughing, you know, he didn't really see him. He's just all this stuff. is to help, you know, even to, you know, laughing and stuff. And brothers he's like taking stuff, moving stuff around in the office while he's in there because he might guard them. He's like, oh, there's some black dude coming in there and clean up. No threat.
Right.
He said, use that to your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find that movie.
Yeah, Kanan.
Yeah, Judges 9 and 53. Judges 9 and 53. Yes. A certain woman cast a piece of millstone upon Abimelech's head and all to break his skull. Then, 54, then he called hastily unto the young man, his armor bearer, and said unto him, draw thy sword and slay me, that men say not of me a woman slew me.
Exactly.
And his young man thrust him through and he died.
Right. He didn't want that stain on his name, right? Yeah, yeah.
That's all.
Yep. Kill me before somebody else does. Or no, kill me before I die at a hand. And I die like that. And my name be dishonored. All right, Kun. So let's go back and finish up. So we are at Judges chapter 4, verse 23. It says, so God subdued on that day Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel prospered and prevailed against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan. Right. And then you read the next chapter when it gets into the prayer and dance, song and dance that they did in honor of what the Most High had allowed. And it's going to touch on certain details and things pertaining to our deliverances, plural. Right. All right. So that concludes today's Sabbath service lesson. Next week will be in the New Testament, the book of Romans, the 6th and 7th chapter. Romans 6th and 7th chapter for next week's Sabbath service. So for those who watched, listened in, the water for your patience. Most High's will, everybody was able to get precepts and understanding. Like we said, there's other good topics for classes to kind of dive further into that we discussed today. Look out for those in the next upcoming classes. Most High's will, everybody enjoys the rest of the Sabbath day. Give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in Christ for the day of rest and for our wisdom that we still are striving to increase every day until Yahweh Shah comes, or until you give up your spirit due to whatever circumstance, right? Everything is just not we doing this till Christ comes. We're doing this until whenever, forever, right? We're going to be doing this in the kingdom. We just won't be having classes like this, but will we still keeping these commandments and these precepts as the will of the Most High suffices? So with that, we're going to say Shalom, Tawada for tuning in. Most High's will, everybody has a good and Tawab, or good meaning Tawab in the Hebrew upcoming week. Look forward to hearing and seeing each other during the classes, Tuesdays and Fridays. Tell a friend, bring a friend. Makes the classes more fruitful and productive as well. When we have newcomers who are intrigued and interested in learning about their heritage and their customs, all right, and their power, meaning the Most High in Christ. With that, I say Shalom, peace to all. Most High's will. Everybody stay tuned for the closing prayers.
Barakata Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natalanawa, Par, Yahagapin, Thawada Amun, La Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. English translation. Most High, blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. Madwa Penuel Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushah, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Ma'ika Allah, Waha Hayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemal Ayah, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakazayak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Da'ai, Rabium, Bayana, Rabium, Sabalanwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Aqua, Rabium, Ahabium, Rabium, Haganah, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Katayanawa, Laha'akin, Wa'akwa, Wayasha Allah, Thumb Yad, Wa'iwalam, Ba'Hashem, Yahawashai, Thawada, Amun. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High, in the name of Christ, please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel, and send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayash Allah, Wabatya Saparium, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Achab. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel in the house of books for schools. In Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. With that, say Shalom, Ashar Shabbath.
Shalom.
Shalom.